Well, just about every Canadian, I guess, with a pulse will know my guest here, Mike Pinball Clemons. Wow, 4-time Grey Cup champion, 3 as a player, 1 as a coach, Hall of Famer, record for all-purpose yards in all-pro football. He's a dad, he's a husband. That's quite a resume you got there, guy.
Well, when you see a resume like that, you can be assured of one thing, right? And maybe I'll put it in this context. I consider myself a turtle on a fence post. If you go home this afternoon or this evening and you see a turtle on a fence post, you can be guaranteed of one thing. That turtle didn't get there by himself, right?
I'm not sure exactly the number, 25,000 all-purpose yards, pro football record. So all of those yards, like 1 yard at a time? No. There's a few longer than that, maybe. But tell me about that. I mean, I'm sure you had some nice 75 and 80-yard runs, but lion's share of that probably was a lot of grunt, 2 yards at a time and 1 yard back and 7 yards up. And tell me about success when it has to come 1 yard at a time.
If you could take the ball and you could run, right, 25,000 yards in one play, it would be sort of I would imagine it as being this triumphant run, right? But it would literally take 2 hours, right? Yeah, everything be over, right? It really is the process. It's not the destination. That's how life is. Life is not a destination. We never get there. If you've gotten there, then that means you're bored, you have no dreams, you got no spice in life, you're not living. We should never get there in life, right? Life is a process, not a destination. And it really is that process to get there.
Let me touch on some of your value propositions a little bit. One of the things you seem to touch on is this whole idea of, when I come to you with excuses or the victim or the reason I missed the block or the reason that I didn't do well in school or whatever, and you don't seem to tolerate victim statements too much. What's that about?
It's not so much not tolerating. You want to be understanding. The reality is I want to be practical, want to be sensible about it. We have a saying, no excuses, no regrets. And by that, I grew up to a single parent. My mom was 18 when she had me. We grew up in the projects. Her mom and grandmother died by the time she was 7 years old. She was raised by her great-grandmother, who went blind around the time I was born, my great-great-grandmother. And so she had an amazing responsibility at 18 years old. She not only had to take care of me as a single parent, she also had to raise or take care of the person who had raised her. But in that, she didn't make excuses. She knew excuses are just like belly buttons. Everyone's got one, and none of them are any good, right? So don't make excuses. When people say, well, what's the biggest obstacle you've ever had to overcome? When I think about the biggest obstacle I've ever had to overcome through growing up in the projects, a single parent, being a little man in a big man's game and transitioning from playing to coaching and all the different things that I've had, when I look at the biggest obstacle I've ever had to face, it's very simple. The biggest obstacle I've ever had to face, I see every morning when I brush my teeth, right? It's me. When I look in the mirror, I am my biggest obstacle. And when I get that, when I understand that there's no one that can be a greater obstacle to me than me to my success, I actually have a chance to do something much more productive.
Tell me about your angle on, you talk about humility, but I'm interested in how you connect humility with leadership. So for instance, were there times, crucial parts of the game, where, the star of the team always wants the ball? So how do you go driving in the huddle and say, I want the ball? Or as a leader, do you say, I want that ball, but I will do first what's best for the team? How do you balance leadership with humility?
That's a wonderful question, because a lot of times we think of the specific situation, right, and say, now, hey, I'm going to grab humility out of the bag now, and I'm going to insert that right here. And the reality is when you get to that huddle, you've had literally thousands of hours of practice together, right? You've had times where you've traveled on the road. You had a chance to go out to dinners. You've talked about all different kinds of topics, from religion to politics to family to every possible thing under the sun. A lot of sports, of course, in those conversations. And so it really is that body of work. So when you go into that huddle, right, and you say that I want the ball, right, that can be seen as a sort of ego-driven kind of concept. But when you have acted with humility over the course of 3 seasons, right? And you go in at that crucial time and you point out that you have an opportunity to make a play, right? They understand that this guy's not saying that because he's ego-driven, because now there's a body of work that is there. So when we talk about these things, it's like we can also, oh, hey, let me pull out the humility card. I'm gonna play that one now, right? Yeah. But you see, what humility does is it gives you a voice. When you're always talking, you're brash, you're arrogant, right? You know, people tend to tune you out. Right? But when you exercise humility, it actually gives you a voice. And then as we look at the deeper roots of leadership and what it looks like, it creates trust. Humility, right, creates trust in people.
Okay. Final question for you.
Yes. People
wonder, where did the pinball name come from?
I'll give you the extended version. I'll give you the remix. Yes, yes. So I went for 24 years without a nickname. Everybody tried to give me a nickname. Yeah, Dynamite.
Oh,
yes,
really?
yeah. So yeah, nothing ever stuck. Right? Just yeah, everybody wanted to try to give me, you know, Speed this or you know all kind of nicknames. And I was here one week, and we had a goal line scrimmage. And in the goal line scrimmage, all the young guys are there, right? So yeah, on the offensive side of the ball, because this is a defensive drill. So you know, in practice, sometimes you have a defensive emphasis. Sometimes this day is off a defensive emphasis, and so all the young guys are on offense, and so it is their job to kill us as practice for the real game. So when you get down there, it's 1 yard to go. It's only 1 yard, and you got to make the last stand, the goal line stand. And so our defense is practicing the goal line stand, and so they're practicing in all the young guys against all the young guys to practice for success, and also because you don't want to injure your own guys. You don't want to injure your starters. So I'm the new guy, and I get the ball, and just like it's supposed to happen, I get the ball and I get hit, but I don't fall down, right? I bounce off and I run around the end and I score. And this, you think, is a good thing, but the coach isn't concerned about the rookie. He's concerned about his defense, right? So the coach says, do it again. So now this is taking all the imagination out. So goal line already, you know that, you know, there's not a lot of imagination here. You're lined up in the eye and you're just going to get the ball and run right at so not a lot of imagination. But now when we don't go to the huddle and we don't even have that thought of there may be something different here, that you're actually doing the exact same play and this little guy showed you up, you know it's not good. So this time I get back and as soon as I touch the ball, a guy meets me, right? I mean, just boom, just blows my categories, right? And just scatters but I don't fall down. I ran around the other end and I scored again. He said, "You little guy, get out of my drill and do it again." Yes. So I never had to run the goal line scrimmage with the first defense again. And he made the statement later that week.
Who did?
Coach Bob Obilovich was the Coach Obi made the statement at that time that we have this new guy that bounces around like a pinball, and it stuck.
And it stuck.
Yes.
Hey, listen, I appreciate you sharing some of your story with us today.
Kevin, thank you so much. Real pleasure.